Earlier in 2023, Honda Cars Philippines finally brought us the facelifted version of the current generation Honda Brio, and it is this exact car that we have here right now. So in this video, let's take a look at this 2024 Honda Brio in the top-of-the-line RS 1.2 trim with a black top. Let's now take a look at the exterior first. There's a new color now, and it is this electric lime metallic, and I think it looks absolutely cute. It's very similar to the color that you would get with a Suzuki Jimny, albeit just a little bit lighter. Now, for the changes of this car, we now have a new grille. It's slightly bigger now. The RS logo is a little bit more pronounced. LED headlights with LED DRLs plus LED fog lights are all present. The bumper is also slightly different now, but if you come over here to the side of the vehicle, you'll see that the rims are still the same. However, I see that the color, the paint on the rims looks just a little bit darker compared to before. 15 inches still, wrapped in Bridgestone Potenza tires. So these are pretty good tires right here. Being the black top version, obviously you do get a painted black roof, and I think it contrasts really well with this electric lime metallic color. Pair that with the new black painted wing mirrors, and this car just looks pretty good. There's also a side skirt at the bottom, and for your brakes, you only get disc brakes over at the front, but still drum brakes over at the rear. Given the size of this vehicle, it doesn't take much walking to get towards the back. Now let's talk about the rear right here. So changes, the bumper garnish here, this plastic piece, that's kind of different now. You lose out on the honeycomb pattern on either sides. The RS logo is a bit higher now, and that's pretty much all that have been changed over here. Now on top, there is still this nice spoiler effect, and you even get the third brake light over there. And what I really love about hatchbacks, which we don't get for sedans, is the rear wiper. Very helpful for when you are reversing in the rain. And speaking of reversing in the rain, you now get the parking sensors, but you still don't get a reverse camera. Now let's open up this tailgate right here. Incredibly light, by the way, and space isn't too bad. It's about the same as any other car in its class. However, if you really need to put like luggages in here, up to medium-sized luggages will be perfectly fine. When I first filmed the video on this Brio when it first came out here in the Philippines, I mentioned that it has 60-40 folding split, but seats, that is. But no, I was wrong. I'm sorry about that. So you do have to unlatch both of these latches on either side, and the seat back will only fold 100. How do you say that? Yeah, 100. So it's just one whole piece that folds down. With that folded down, you can even put bigger luggages in here, maybe 2 or 3 pieces, maybe 4 if you stack them on top of each other. So yeah, overall not bad for such a tiny car such as the Brio. Now for the engine, well, they didn't really change anything, so this is still the same 1.2 liter naturally aspirated gasoline engine with IV tech, making 90 horsepower and 110 Newton meters of torque. That represents a pretty significant increase compared to its competitors such as the Toyota Wigo. So this is definitely a much faster car than those cars. And for your transmission, it still is the same CVT as before. Now for fuel economy, you can do around 9 kilometers per liter in the city, but take note, we're filming this in the December rush of 2023 in the Philippines, so it's pretty much Carmageddon right here. Without this whole fiasco, it's probably gonna do like 10 or 11 kilometers per liter, right? And on the highway, you can do around 19 kilometers per liter, which is always an advantage of these tiny and efficient vehicles. All right, now inside the Honda Brio RS, we check the door first. Sounds pretty good, especially for a car in this class. This interior is as basic as it gets, and again, that is to be expected in this class. And yes, you do still get lots of plastic in here. In fact, you won't find a single soft touch part. However, if you like knock on it and like press on it, it doesn't creak. This is pretty well built, and is probably the most well-built car in its class. Look on the side too. These all plastics, yeah, those are pretty good sounding and feeling. The steering wheel, it also feels incredibly solid, and you even have buttons right here to control your radio, but that's about it. Your instrument cluster, unchanged too, very huge gauges, very easy to read, and towards the center, this is slightly new. So you still have the 7-inch touchscreen over here, but now you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, both of which are wired though. But what I'm not a big fan of is this head unit right here. It doesn't feel OEM. It feels like Honda simply went out and bought this Kenwood head unit from, I don't know, like Banawe or something. It kind of looks like that. It's giving off that vibe. And to further prove my point, there is this wire over here that just sticks out of the dashboard, and that's where you plug your USB cable in and your phone for your Apple CarPlay. So it just feels a little bit too, you know, like J-rig, MacGyvered out of nowhere. It doesn't feel original. And speaking of that too, you don't even get a single USB port in here in a car released in 2023. I mean, look at this. I still have to use this like 12-volt outlet cigarette lighter thing just to be able to like plug USB devices in here. So yeah, that's kind of annoying. However, what I can't fault this car for is the amount of storage space. So I have one here on the side. I can put my phone there. There's another one on my left side by the dashboard. There's a big one here by the center. There's 2 cup holders. There's another place to put your phone. And if you look over at your passenger side door, there's 2 extra holes right there. So you will never lack a single storage space in here. There's always places to put things. And your AC system, while it's not a climate control system, it's digital, so it's very easy to use. It's simple, but it's easy to use. Now, the seats, probably the most comfortable in its class. Nothing fancy here either. Manual seats for both sides, but I just love the support it gives you. There's not too aggressive of bolsters. The fabric on it feels good. The thigh support is pretty good too. Feels very ergonomic. So even for long drives, this is pretty good. Now we move on towards the second row and you check the door too. Not bad, truly. Now, the back seats of this car is what really surprised me, because I was expecting to have like very thin seats, uncomfortable, but lots of space because the seats are thin. But surprisingly, over here, while legroom is still good and so is headroom, it's pretty decent for its class, the seats are just really damn good. You know, they're thick, they're high, and your seating position is you kind of look over the front seat. So it really is good even for long journeys. Your thigh support is good, the recline is about okay. It just feels much better than any other car in its class. Try sitting inside like a Mitsubishi Mirage G4's rear seats or in a Toyota Vios. Yes, you got space, but it's nowhere near as comfortable as this. This is truly good. On the side, yes, you still do get lots of plastic, and the door cards are still pretty thin, but there's an upside to that. You see, despite the narrow width of this car, because those are also thin, once you seat a third passenger by the middle, and given that you don't have much of a transmission tunnel, there's enough space for carrying 3 people over here at the back. And there's even this center headrest right now. You don't get much toys back here. There's no armrest or anything, but at least you do get this center cup holder, and you get map pockets on both sides of the seats. This is amazing. Like, I've seen much more expensive cars costing thrice as much as the Brio, but they only have it on one side. This one, it gets it on both sides. Amazing. So now we drive the Honda Brio RS, and driving this car, it really is a pretty fun car to drive. It feels very nimble. Handling is pretty good. It's not as nimble as, let's say, the Toyota Wigo, because this is a slightly larger car overall, but yeah, it gives you more than enough fun. So let's start off with the power. 1.2 liter engine, right? It probably won't give you that much fun, but truly it isn't bad. 90 horsepower coupled with the weight of this vehicle, which is not even 1 ton heavy, and you have a recipe for a fun car. So the only issue I have with the power is the transmission that it's paired with. So this CVT in here, it's smooth, yes, and I like that. It's also very efficient, but it doesn't allow you for some reason to redline the car no matter how hard you push it. Even if you put it into like this S mode, it simply doesn't let you redline it. It lets you get close to it, but never redline, which is kind of sad given the fact that these Hondas, like their claim to fame, at least back in the 90s, was the VTEC technology, right? Which really kicks you at the upper end of the rev range. This one, well, you can't get any of that. So that makes me want to try out the 5-speed manual transmission version of the Brio, hopefully in the future. Let's talk about the handling. So this is a tiny car. Chuck this around the corner, it will happily comply. The steering in it, yes, it's electric power steering now, so it's not as weighted and not as direct as the older hydraulic systems, especially the older Hondas, but this isn't bad too. There's some amount of feedback that just tells you somehow where your front wheels are, and honestly, that is all you need. Now, in terms of comfort, you might expect like a short wheel-based vehicle to ride pretty bad, right? But I'm happy to report that, first of all, in terms of the softness of it, it's just enough for your daily trips as well as your occasional mountain runs. But also, the way that everything is just set up, potholes will not bother you. The car doesn't like shake on too much about due to the short wheelbase. It's good. It's tuned really well. Next up, I'd like to talk about the noise and vibrations in here. So, in terms of noise, these tires do an excellent job of not really producing too much noise. So tire noise, it's not that bad even if you're going at like 60 or 80. In fact, I think this car is even quieter than the Honda Civic RS that I drove just a week back. That car at like 40 kilometers per hour started to get loud. This one doesn't. When you get on over to the highway though, as long as you're going slightly below the speed limit, 80 again, that's fine. But once you reach 100, that's where it starts to get a little bit loud in here. And another issue I have on the highway is the car kind of dislikes going that fast, so everything starts just like vibrating. So that really is the downside of the 1.2 liter engine. And these are the times wherein I wish I would have like upgraded to a Honda City, for example. This is really just a city car. But just in case you really do go on the highway very often, well, not to fret, because there's a very easy way of masking all those loud noises and that vibration feel that you get, and that's by blasting your music loud. And I'm happy to report again that this car comes with a 4-speaker sound system plus 2 tweeters, and they sound pretty good. In fact, they're probably the best in its class. And not just that, I've tried the speakers in a Toyota Camry, for example, and I think I prefer the speakers in the Brio. Excellent. So now let's talk about the pricing of the Honda Brio RS Blacktop. This car right here costs 868,000 pesos. Now, is it a good car? Yes, I think it's a pretty good car for its class. Is it a fun car? It's also pretty fun enough. It's okay to drive. It's very easy to park and very easy to maneuver. However, for not much more money, especially if you do financing over a period of like 5 years or so, you can get a base model Honda City, which gets you a much bigger car, a much better built car, as well as a much bigger engine car. And I know you're gonna say that, okay, what if I want extra fuel economy? Well, honestly, based on our tests, fuel economy wise, they're not too far apart either. In fact, in some tests of ours, the Honda City is even more efficient despite having a 1.5 liter engine. So there is that. But if you really insist on a tiny car which is easy to drive, especially if you're pretty new to driving, then I still think that the Honda Brio RS is the best car in its class.